Jamie, we don't take credit for all the shit
Yes,
we do sometimes.
that's exactly
It's
right.
like, President Biden, God bless his soul, like literally created one of the most amazing industrial policies that this country has probably seen in quite a while, and reinvigorated the chip manufacturing to the point where it's going to probably keep our economy running for quite a while, even though this guy's trying to kill it, right? Um, that man should have been at every freaking chip plant opening
Yeah.
every time. Like we needed to be doing stuff like that. We need to be taking credit, right, for everything that we do. Like we have no sense of audacity. We just like kind of like, oh, people are going to, give us credit. Like you don't get credit in this business. You take credit. Like that's just the way
Yeah.
the world works.
Welcome to At Our Table. I'm Jamie Harrison, and today I am joined by my good friend, Senator Ruben Gallego of Arizona. Senator Gallego is in his very first year in the U.S. Senate. He was in the House of Representatives where I met him, and he's a graduate of Harvard University. He served in the U.S. Marines in Iraq, and he is the very first Latino elected to the U.S. Senate in Arizona. He grew up in Chicago as the son of two immigrants. He has 3 kids, one actually just born this last June. And he's quickly becoming one to watch and has recently returned from a trip to Iowa, which I'm going to ask him about. Senator Gallego, it is so great to see you, man. Thank you so much for joining me at our table.
Good to see you again, man. Thanks for inviting me.
Well, listen, folks, I want you to know Ruben's a good friend, and I always like him because he is straight, no chaser. Like he is direct to it. And that's what I love about him because he's real. And that's what we need more of in American politics, and particularly in the Democratic Party. So Ruben, to start off, for those folks who may not know you, how the hell did you get involved in politics?
Because the Marines, really. For somebody that may not know kind of my more Marine history, I serve my country. I just wanted to do a regular kind of reservist contract, son of immigrants. This is pre 9/11. And unfortunately, I ended up going to an illegal war, the Iraq War. Saw awful combat. 1/3 of my company was killed or wounded. And even worse, when we got back, we didn't have any VA services really to match the needs that we wanted. So we didn't have the weapons, the armor that we needed while we were in Iraq, or leadership for that matter. And then we come back here, and my guys were ending up, homeless, committing suicide, being rejected for services, and I found myself kind of being like a VA counselor essentially to all these guys, and that's how I started kind of advocating and pushing for more services for my guys because I had the privilege of at least knowing the system, with the education that I had, and I decided I was going to try to take care of as many of these guys as I could.
Ruben, I'm glad you're bringing that up, and it sounds like that was your motivator and your inspiration to really get involved in public policy and to serve in a different way. One of the things as a former Capitol Hill staffer and somebody who ran for office and someone who comes from a military family, it is so frustrating that oftentimes, and it's sad to say that some of our Republican friends have this, is that they talk about the military, but really what they're talking about is, the Boeings, the Lockheeds, and all that of the world, and not about the men and women and their families and how they are impacted by their service. Can you just tell us a little bit more about what you have done in the House, in the U.S. Senate, in order to do better by the folks who sacrifice so much for this nation and for this democracy that we all enjoy?
Well, even going back to the State House, like the first bill I passed is actually it's called the in-state tuition for veterans bill, because a lot of veterans are coming back, getting the GI Bill and told that they still have to pay out-of-state tuition for whatever reason. And so that bill I passed back in 2011, now thousands of veterans have gone to school in Arizona for in-state tuition, was essentially free, especially if you use the GI Bill. A lot of the work that we've also been doing has to do around housing. As you know, homelessness is always on the rise. with our community. A lot of contributing reasons why. But when things get really, really bad, when things get really expensive, veterans are sometimes the first persons you see on the streets. But it's also just like defending the basics of what we have right now. This administration, which claims to be the best administration ever when it comes to veterans, is probably the most harmful administration when it comes to veterans. Whether it's firing like one third of all federal employees uh, are veterans, or trying to get rid of 88,000 VA employees, which means you're getting rid of people that provide the services for us, and you're making us have longer lag time. In this administration, there are people in the administration, especially people that kind of were around Project 2025, that would love nothing more than to destroy the VA. And make sure every veteran is out and trying to deal with the private market, which would utterly destroy us. The thing with something like Donald Trump is he doesn't understand. Never had any curiosity about the VA. He's never been involved in the VA. No one in his family ever was in the military. So doesn't understand the importance of the VA. So if they come and tell him like, oh, we want you to do this to help get quote unquote veterans more services, all it's probably doing is deteriorating the standards, the practices, and the coverage that we need. And it's going to end up costing us. It ends up costing us more in lag time. Like it took me forever to get services when I first got back from the war. Now we're hearing doctors are rejecting, for example, their offers. 40% of doctors recently rejected the offer that the VA gave them. And it's hard to get doctors to begin with to come and work for the VA, and now they have zero interest in it. So imagine if you're a veteran, you're going to go get services. You're going to have to get in line and wait in a very long line because these idiots decided to start doing arbitrary firings. And now when they're trying to recruit new workers, everyone's saying, why would I go work for you guys? You guys just got rid of a bunch of employees without notice, gave them, basically a couple weeks pay and insurance towards the end of the month. Like, why would I put my family through that? So right now, the most important thing we can do is stop the cuts to the VA, because these guys are going to make some major cuts that could actually end up collapsing the whole thing, which is really what they want.
Again, it's disheartening. It's sad. I have an uncle who served in Afghanistan and Iraq, and I see the impact that it has had on him.
Yeah.
And how important, though, the VA community is for him, and all the things that he's still working through, all of the physical and the mental
Yep.
impacts that going to war can really have. And I think it's important to have folks like you in policymaking positions to hold people accountable, because you have experienced those things yourself. So there's a sensitivity that you have to many of the issues that the men and women in our military have gone through, and the impact that it's had on their families. It's so important, and it's so key, particularly when you have an administration like the one that we have now that is a bit tone deaf on some of these things. One of the things, Ruben, would be interesting is, what are some of the lessons from the battlefield that you have carried on with you as you engage in another type of conflict on the floor of the U.S. Senate or the floor of the House of Representatives? What are some of the things that you've learned and that you can apply right now to the policymaking that you're engaged in?
Well, I mean, the thing you learn as a Marine, as an infantry Marine, is that intensity matters. And so when you're striking and when you're going on the assault, you have to move with intensity. And everything I've done is that, right? Whether it's, running for office or being, in elected office and in legislating, I move with an intensity to get it done. And, that matters a lot, because it gathers force, it gathers people around you. Like, this guy really believes in this, and that's how you get, stuff done. The other thing that you learn, especially in urban combat, is hesitation kills. Momentum wins the day. And so make decisions quickly, and execute on those quickly. And something that policymakers, and Democrats, honestly, we fuck up all the time. We come up with great ideas. We are really slow on the implementation, if at all. And one of the things that I try to instill in my staff and everyone else is that, why do we have to wait 2 years, 3 years, 4 years? Like, let's move fast, let's execute quickly. And, because people are hurting now. right? So a long-term process doesn't really help the people that are currently now. And then lastly, you have to, especially in war, you have to quickly adapt and overcome, right? When you're an infantry marine, a lot of times what really happens, and you see all these movies, there's all these great plans, these generals putting all these maps out and everything like that. It's all bullshit. Usually what happens is it's, a bunch of young early 20-year-olds and some 18, 19-year-olds that are given a lot of weaponry, a lot of bombs, told to go somewhere, given an order, and most of the time everything goes to shit, and we have to adapt on the spot to try to finish the mission, which is our primary goal, mission objective. And that's why for me, I hate orthodoxy. I hate when people do things over and over again, because that's how it's always been done. When if I had done that, I probably would be dead
Yeah.
in my unit. And so bringing a lot of that mentality into the political role has been very helpful to me, both in terms of winning and getting things done, because I don't need to be stuck to orthodoxy. It makes zero sense for us to keep doing the same thing over and over again, especially if it's not productive or doesn't make us winners. And I feel more comfortable kind of breaking out of the mold than doing the same thing over and over again, because that's just that's how you survived over there.
Yeah. Well, let's go back a little bit. As I mentioned earlier in the intro, you were in the U.S. House. Now you are in the U.S. Senate. You ran for the Senate in 2024. And you initially ran against somebody who was a Democrat. She was a Democratic incumbent in terms of Kyrsten Sinema in Arizona. What prompted you to decide that, I'm in the House, this is my colleague, that she's in the upper chamber, but what prompted you to say, you know what, I want to run for the U.S. Senate? And then once we talk about that, I also want to delve into your race against Kari Lake in 2024 as well. But why did you decide that you want to go from the House to the Senate?
The Voting Rights Act, essentially. I was forgiving Kyrsten for a lot of things, and I had known her forever. I've been politically supportive of each other, everything else like that. But when she didn't understand the assignment after January 6th, right, when I was on the floor trying to keep us organized, and she didn't see that there was now going to be a slow-moving coup, when it comes to the deterioration of democracy, and she blocked the John Lewis Voting Rights Act with a filibuster. That's when it was just time to go.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, we could have very different opinions on who should be taxed, who shouldn't be taxed, what kind of regulations should be here, what kind of regulations should exist, whatever. It doesn't matter. When democracy is on the line, when there's an existential threat to democracy, that's when you need to step up. And she didn't step up, right? She downplayed it. And look where we are now. The stuff that we would have actually been able to protect on the John Lewis Voting Rights Act would have protected and stopped gerrymandering, for example, that's happening in Texas, right? Some of the laws that they're trying to pass to get rid of vote by mail, right? That also was protected under that. Individual opportunities for people to register to vote, and how to actually be able to have polling places. All these things that they're going to go after come 2026 should have been protected if it wasn't for someone like Kyrsten Sinema, who basically cast it aside and said that the institution, the filibuster, was more important than the institution of democracy, right? And now we're seeing the ramification of it. We're going to have a rough 2 years because of her cowardice and the cowardice of a couple of their senators and not passing the John Lewis Voting Rights Act.
The Democrats almost unanimously in the House of Representatives passed the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, went to the United States Senate. We had the support of the vast majority of Democrats. No Republicans supported it. But because of the filibuster, because of Sinema, because of Manchin, that legislation didn't get passed. And that's going to be one of those moments in American history that I think a lot of people are going to be pointing to about when American democracy really took a punch to the gut. So basically, you got in the race. Kyrsten said that she was going to run, and then eventually she decided not to. And then it became a two-person race between you and the Republican, Kari
Kyrsten got
Lake.
in March of 2024, and then now it's me and Kari Lake.
Man, what the hell? I mean, talk about Looney Tunes. I think we all remember the time when she tried to ambush you with that video in the airport, or it was an
Oh yeah,
airport or somewhere.
airport.
I
Yeah,
mean, it's just crazy. But but in the end of the day, you won in Arizona, even when our presidential nominee was not able to pull off
yeah,
a victory. What I got here, you won by 2.4%,
yep,
and I think Vice President Harris lost the state by 5.5%.
yeah,
So you basically had about 1 in 10 Trump voters actually voting for you.
yeah. And we
What
also had a Green
what
Party. We also had a Green Party candidate who coincidentally had a Latino last name and had a $2 million IE helping him out too. So we probably had a little more wiggle room too.
so tell me, what was the difference? How did you win? And what did the presidential campaign not do in order to also be victorious?
Like, and this is not my, I don't want to go on a, anti Harris Biden rant or anything like that.
Yeah.
I think the thing that we ran is that we ran a very Arizona race. Also because I wasn't, you got to remember, back in the day, I wasn't the establishment pick because Senator Sinema was still caucusing with the Democrats, right? So up until March 2024, I had been running since January of 2024. Oh, sorry, January of 2023. I had no national support. And so I basically got to run the race that I wanted to run, right? So I didn't have to listen to the DS. I didn't have to listen to a lot of kind of like, I would say conventional wisdom. And so I got to do what I wanted. And the one thing that I knew that we had not done as Democrats, but that I knew that I could do well, is that I wanted to do outreach to men,
Yeah.
all men, Latino men, white men, working class men in general. And not that I was also going to ignore, women voters, is that like, why not also try to eat into that? And so we actually put an active campaign that was focused on, men and the status of men. And, saying, you know what, we're going to try to reach these guys. We're not just going to give up on them. We're not just going to say, well, hopefully we get, 42%, whatever the fuck we're supposed to. I don't even know the ratios, to be honest, which is always very helpful. You ever see Han Solo when he's trying to pull out of wherever it is with the Millennium Falcon, C-3PO starts saying the stats, and Han Solo says like, I don't want to know the odds. I'm kind of the same person. Like, don't tell
Yeah.
me, right? Don't tell me like historically this is what Democrats do with this community. Like, I don't care. I'm going to do the best that I can, and essentially that's what we did. So I think the campaign was different in the sense that we had a very thorough all Arizona campaign where, we talked to Latinos and then we targeted Latino men. We talked about how bad it is right now to be a Latino father and how awful it feels that you can't provide for your family, even though you're working so much, right? How pissed off you are, let's be honest, that people that are crossing the border are getting work permits and your family that's been here for 10 years can't get a work permit, right? Or that they're getting some type of housing and support, but you're not. And, we had very honest conversations. We didn't run away from being a Democrat. I campaigned with Vice President Harris up until the last 2 days in Arizona. And I would have all the way to the end, except she campaigned somewhere else, obviously. But, we went right to it. Even on the border, we engaged right on the border head on, took it head on, even though the Democrats were supposed to be quote unquote bad on border and were supposed to be over borders. We ended up winning the border vote. When people were exiting the polling stations and everything else, the exit polls showed that they trusted Donald Trump on the border and they trusted Ruben Gallego on the border. So, a lot of it was just that. And a lot of it was just style. I mean, we did campaign
Yeah.
stuff that was fun, you know?
And tell us a little bit about some of those fun events
Yeah.
and campaign
Yeah, I mean,
events,
like, look,
because I think it's really important.
your regular campaign consultant would tell you, don't do that because it's a waste of money.
Yeah.
And I was always of the mind that campaigns aren't necessarily about messaging; they're also about vibes. And there's a lot of voters that will never see a campaign commercial, but they'll get a sense of your vibe of who you are from what they see online from all the other friends that are maybe marginally involved in politics, right? So, I'm a big boxing guy, love boxing, grew up doing a little boxing, boxed a little in the Marine Corps. It's a very stereotypical Latino thing, but, we grew up watching boxing as a family. There's one big boxer, Canelo, who's a huge, huge guy, huge following, Canelo from Mexico. And he has two matches every year, right? And if you're a boxing fan, you know this. It's always on Cinco de Mayo or September 16th, one of the other, over the weekend of. And so knowing, because I grew up in this community, that the way to get Latino men to come and see you and talk to you is to do something fun. I use those days. Remember, I was running for 2 years, so there was a lot of opportunities. And I, rented out a boxing gym and invited like the men in the neighborhood to come watch the boxing match. I provided carne asada, beer. We had a big old blow up. It was great. We did carne asada parties. I put a rodeo together, old school Mexican rodeo.
Wow.
With the guys on horses and freaking bucking broncos, everything else like that. We did lowrider events and mechanic garages. Look, I didn't even give up on white voters either. Like I did a pickup ball tournament to try to engage with suburban white voters. And again, that was fun. I never had played pickleball, but like it showed that again, we're trying to do that. For Native American communities, I visited all 22 federally recognized tribes, and you East Coast people won't understand what that means because y'all have really small states. But Arizona, when you have 22 federally recognized tribes, some of these tribes are the size of states themselves. I have one tribe the size of Connecticut. The Navajo Nation's the size of West Virginia. And some of them are really hard to get to. One of them is actually
Yeah.
the bottom of the Grand Canyon. And to fulfill my promise, I hiked all the way to the bottom of the Grand Canyon. I took cameras with me and everything else like that. And it was fun. We had fun the whole time. We just did a lot of stuff like that to really just break out. And, I think it made a difference. It's now when I walk around Phoenix or Tucson or wherever, people will come up to me and show me pictures of them attending one of my events. And what that tells me, it's great they attended my event, but I guarantee you that they were at one of my fun events and they showed someone else on this stuff. And, we were able to break out of the mold and just go at it. And it really was a huge, huge help, I think.
So, Ruben, it sounds like you did some amazing events. And you're right. The consultants in DC would have told you, don't spend money on that. Let's spend more money on points for TV and all of this other stuff. But I also know that you have one of the best partners or consultants in the business who has his finger on the pulse of real America, which is Chuck Rocha, who's a good friend of both of ours.
Yeah.
Gives good advice for how to just keep it real.
Yeah. Well, and also Chuck's not your traditional DC consultant. As a matter of fact, most people shy away from him. But I've known him forever, and when I was thinking of putting this campaign together, I told him from day one, like, we're going to run this campaign the way that we want it, and it made a big, big difference to have someone like him on my side.
Well, and that's one of the things. As I talk to the DS and some of these national committees, I also think they have trouble understanding how to run candidates of color on a statewide basis.
Yeah.
And it's partly because you don't have folks in the building with those lived experiences and understanding the communities and their fingers on the pulse. And sometimes they think it's it's a cookie cutter approach. This is how you run for the U.S. Senate.
Sure.
And you just plug and play.
The problem is too, though, like, Jamie, is that these people have Black and Latino friends. Let's be clear.
Yeah.
But they're all the Black and Latino friends they all went to the same Ivy League schools with. Right. So it's just like, they're like, they think like diversity is like Black, brown, Asian people. And like, if I get their opinion, then therefore I have the opinion of the Black man or the Latino man. When the average Black man, average Latino man is someone that makes their wealth by how many hours they work, right?
That's exactly right.
So, you could go to some of these places, you'll see diversity, but there's no diversity actual them understanding where these communities are and how they are. And And it's just easier for them to get in those little safe bubbles. Like, well, I must be doing something right. My black friend who I met at Princeton, right, is telling me I'm doing this right. Well, you probably aren't. Like, that guy that went to Princeton is probably out of touch at this point too. So,
So, Ruben, what would your advice be to the party apparatus at large in terms of how to get this right? Right? Because they have the dollars. How do
sure.
you
I
get
mean,
this
for
right?
the party that values diversity, we hire from the same freaking places, right? We have the same pipeline of people that come in, right? It's usually the NGO pipeline, or it's like the private school pipeline, or it's the Capitol Hill pipeline. And they tend to all come from the same kind of communities. Like, hire people without college degrees, hire people that are former workers of some of these jobs that you're personally, going to represent. Hire people from the state that think outside the box. We hired a lot of working class Latino kids on my campaign who had, maybe worked on a campaign, but had never worked on something this big. And we just let them run wild, right?
Yeah.
And I felt confident that they were going to do well. I had people on my, I would say, overall staff that were like, "What are these kids doing?" And I'm like, "They know what they're doing. They understand my community better than you do, and like, you just have to trust them." But we can't keep hiring from the same pipeline and then are surprised that we, that we're not getting in real touch with America. Point of whatever that would be in whatever part of it.
That is so on point. And I often tell people, we claim that diversity is our greatest strength, particularly in this party, but yet the folks that we have on in terms of the consulting class
Sure.
don't reflect that diversity and diversity in all of its sense, not just in terms of the color of your skin, but your lived experiences as well. I mean, that's really important.
And your opinions, right? Like,
Yeah.
we want we want the votes of black men, Latino men, but we don't want to hear their opinions, right? And we don't want to hear what their concerns are if it puts us in a awkward position with the rest of our coalition, right? But we just want their vote. Like, that's not how this works, right? And like, and it's tough for, I think, for some of the people in our party to accept that.
Well, I really do believe that it's about going to where people are and understanding that everybody's not going to be on the same page about every single thing, right? And it's important for us to all learn from each other and to have some grace and understanding that people are some total of their experiences, and the interactions that they have. I remember, as chair, I went around often, Ruben, to barbershops, to gyms, to churches, talking to Black and Latino men. Even in my first year, I even had roundtables with the guys. And some of the things that I heard, I tried to bring back to DC to basically let folks know that these men saw the Democratic Party as being soft, as being weak, as not standing up to sufficiently address the issues that were important to them. And it wasn't so much that they agreed with Donald Trump or agreed with Republicans, but they admired the fact that they actually stood up and fought for whatever the hell they were fighting for.
And they got elected and they actually did stuff.
Yeah. Well, the question is whether or not they actually did anything. They took credit for a lot of the shit that y'all did, but I don't know if they.
Jamie, we don't take credit for all the shit we do sometimes.
That's exactly right.
Like, President Biden, God bless his soul, like, literally created one of the most amazing industrial policies that this country has probably seen in quite a while, and reinvigorated the chip manufacturing to the point where it's going to probably keep our economy running for quite a while, even though this guy's trying to kill it, right? That man should have been at every freaking chip plant opening.
Yeah.
Every time. Like, we needed to be doing stuff like that. We need to be taking credit, right, for everything that we do. Like, we have no sense of audacity. We just kind of oh, people are going to, give us credit. Like, you don't get credit in this business. You take credit. Like, that's just the way the world works.
Yeah, very true. One of the things that you mentioned was an issue that was in your campaign was the issue of immigration, and that was something that the Republicans and Trump really ran on.
Yeah.
Uh, and I think going into this idea that communities are not monolithic,
Yeah.
Ruben, can you bring us into? You've been a longtime member of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus on the issue of immigration. Is the Hispanic caucus a monolith? Or tell us of the diversity that you see within the caucus and share that with folks about where folks stand on that particular
Yeah, I mean,
issue.
look, I think you have people going from left to right to center on this issue. I think you have people that represent working class areas, border areas, urban areas, um, and some of them are more on more liberal side when it comes to the border, and some of them are, I would say, more on the I say common sense side. Um, but the politicians matter, but it's the where the demographic is. Like this is where the Latino mind is, and this is where what I saw in 2024, right? This population wanted immigration reform, wanted border security, saw the abuse at the border with asylum seekers as being horrific, and absolutely disliked it. Um, thought it was unfair that people that were coming to the border, 4 or 5 months later, were getting work permits because they have family members that also want to get work permits but hadn't gotten it. Were pissed off about the fact that Democrats hadn't done anything on immigration reform. Obviously, there's hurdles with the filibuster, everything else like that. Um, and also, we're just so mad about the economy that, you know what? They knew what they were kind of going to get from Donald Trump, so they were willing to take a chance. Like that is the border voter, Latino voter. Not all of them voted on immigration, but it was probably the number two issue among Latino voters in 2024. A lot of Democrats did not want to accept that. They did not want to accept that the Latino voter was now voting block when it comes to immigration issues, because again, it went against everything we understood, everything, all the mold that we had kind of they've been under. I mean, we recognized it early, and largely because again, I live in the community and talking to a lot of working class Latinos, you could sense it. I mean, my family was telling me how mad they were about what was happening. Right? This is a family that's been voting for Democrats for decades, and we literally took it straight on. Like my second commercial in March of 2024 was a Spanish commercial about cracking down on the border and bringing in bringing in immigration reform. Right? I'm not sure anyone else did that across the country, willing to talk to Latinos about cracking down on the border and cracking down on illegal immigration. Right? Again, we broke out. Right? Towards the end, I think people started recognizing that Latinos were voting that way, but there had been this idea of who Democrats were in the eyes of these Latino voters that it was too late, and that's why we slipped a lot with Latino men. Now, this year, the Republicans could have actually had a really prime opportunity to solidify the Latino male vote in their corner, and they quickly messed it up. How did they mess it up? Number one, mass roundups. They're just not they're both encouraging and celebrating. The
Yep.
Republicans are. Number two, separation of families, the racial profiling that we hear about, right? And where Latinos that are being pulled over and held for hours, even though they're U.S. citizens, and the economy. I mean, much like Black men, Latino men are also first to fire and last to hire.
Yep.
And so when the economy starts going to the shits, they're the ones that feel it the most. And it has gotten worse. It has gotten worse, and they know it. They know it. It's like you see all the spin that's happening. Well, the stock market is up and all this kind of stuff. These men aren't in the stock market. These men aren't buying property. They're literally trying to make wages by how many hours they can work. And right now, it's not even catching up. Carne asada, right, which is our big barbecue meat
Yep.
for Mexicans and Latinos, is up 20%, right? Like this starts adding up, and 2026 rolls around, and they're still doing roundups, and the economy is where it is. You're going to see a swing back so fast, it's going to cause whiplash to like all the political analysts.
So what should the Democratic message be then in 2026? If you're talking to the DS, the DCCC, what is your recipe for what that message needs to be in order to take back the House and even possibly take back the Senate? I don't rule
Sure. I
out
mean, like, look, if things go
taking
bad
back
with
the
this
Senate.
economy, the Senate's in play too. And I don't want that to
Yeah.
happen because I want Americans to be stable. Like wishing for a bad economy is a horrible thing. Um, the problem that Democrats have, and this is like consternation for the last couple of years I've been in politics, is that we're always looking for the policy rifle shot that's gonna get in there and make everybody happy and not piss off any of our allies and all that stuff. We need to be a bigger, bolder party when it comes to our messaging, right? Like, right now, what is this administration doing to this country? It's very simple. They're making us sicker and poorer, right? How's it making sicker? You're seeing the cuts to Medicaid. You're going to see the cuts to the Obamacare subsidies. People are going to be getting kicked off healthcare. Food stamps, we're going to cut to food stamps, make you poorer. Because of all the borrowing they're going to make, it's going to be more expensive for you to buy a car, pay your credit card. Even if you had the opportunity to buy a home, rates are going to be higher because of this asshole. So right now, this guy's making sicker, and poorer, right? That's what these Republicans are going to continue doing, right? And what are the Democrats going to do? We're going to make you healthier and wealthier, right? We're going to be here to make this a stronger America together, right? And from there, let everybody flow, right?
Yeah.
Don't you don't have to exactly go to every policy position below that, but that's a big message, and then tuck it in there, whatever it is, and it's easier that way, right? Like if we come up with this another 10-point policy, and then come up with all these tested professorial words, we're going to be in trouble again.
I agree.
We need to think big, throw big, catch big, and a lot of times we don't do any of those three.
No, I totally agree with you. You have one big umbrella, and you allow people to put whatever the hell they need to under that umbrella.
Go
right?
crazy. And by the way, and that's how you learn from other people, right? Like, oh, I see that's working out over here. Like, yeah, let me use that shit. And like, oh, that looks good. Let's
Yep.
put this together. Let's keep trying.
No, I that is spot on, man. And I hope that we can put down the academic hats and just get back to the real life conditions of where people are. And if we do that, then we'll be fine. We'll be fine.
I think so. Absolutely.
Another big issue that is really gripping the Democratic Party right now, and I think the nation, is what's going on in Gaza and Israel. And I know you've been very outspoken about what's happening in Gaza. You've been critical of Netanyahu. Tell us a little bit of why and where you think the party needs to go at this particular juncture.
Well, look, I think, the party, Democrats, Americans, we all want the same thing, right? We want the hostages released. We want an end to the war. We want Palestinians to be safe. We want Israel to be secure, right? Four things. But how we get there also matters. And I've given more time and grace to Netanyahu than I should have. And he clearly has taken advantage of that. And, for me, my breaking point was the fact that they weren't letting food in to Gaza. And when we were told by the Israeli government that, oh, no, food's coming in. But I hear, Cindy McCain, Ambassador Cindy McCain, wife of John McCain in Arizona, a friend of mine's, telling me, no, there is starvation happening. Don't lie to me. And that's where I started pushing back. And now the other thing that really bothers me is that, look, I'm a Marine. I served in very heavy urban combat. My responsibility was to, number one, mission objective, but number two, take care and protect the civilians. Israel's responsibility, Netanyahu's responsibility, is to do that. There is no, it's part of all the accords that they've signed, as part of the international community. There's no excuse. You need to prosecute this war if you want to prosecute this war, and at the same time, take care of civilians and diminish civilian casualties. They're not doing that. This is why my position has changed. I do think that we as Democrats need to have restrictions on the use of weapons and what Israel should be using weapons and how they should use it. That doesn't mean they can't use weapons to defend themselves, especially if they get attacked by Iran. If there are certain weapons that are important for to accomplish the mission, but there needs to be some accountability. There needs to be some responsibility here. Our job is not to be unconditional support give unconditional support to Israel. We're friends. We're allies. Friends and allies talk to each other. Friends and allies tell each other what's going on, what's going wrong, and what's going right. And I think what we need to do is really get back to that. A lot of us wanted to give Israel the opportunity to do everything they can to get these hostages out. We also didn't want to get involved in the process where if we kind of step in and start pushing policy issues, does that actually help the negotiations for the other side? But at this point, what I'm seeing is that Netanyahu wants the war to go on more so than he wants the hostages to be taken back.
Because he wants to save his ass. He wants to save his ass. He wants to stay in power.
And also, he's got domestic political pressure. Like there's a right wing to his coalition that he needs to keep in his party. And they're the ones that are also like to see this because they don't want to see a Gaza, right? They don't want to see a West Bank. As a matter of fact, they're attacking the West Bank all the time and try to establish settlements. Something that I led a couple of Democrats on to start pushing back on these settlers that they should be sanctioned. We should be, trying to make sure that if they have any U.S. accounts, we freeze their accounts. If they try to come to the United States, we block them from coming to the United States. All these things that we would do with any other persons that do this. For some reason, if you're a settler, we treat you separately and different. Like that's not an excuse. So we're here again to give Israel the security and support they need to make sure that they're a sovereign nation. But they, and this is more Netanyahu, can't take advantage of that. You can't be prosecuting a war in Gaza and then at the same time allowing these extreme settlers to be pushing further and further into the West Bank to the point where it would eventually stop any real opportunity for us to have a Palestinian state. So I think the work is ongoing for some of us. You're going to see some more stuff coming out for us in the future for us that have given Israel time. It's no longer an excuse. And with this recent bombing of this hospital, from the reports I'm getting, it's even more ridiculous.
Yeah. In many ways, Netanyahu is sort of the mirror image of Donald Trump. I don't think Trump is reflective of the values of this nation, and I don't think Netanyahu is reflective of the values of the Israeli people.
The two worst things that could have happened for Israel and for the people of Gaza and just Palestinians in general is that these two people were in power at the same time.
Exactly right. Well, listen, as we wrap up, one of the things that we do on this show that I actually really love is to present a special award to somebody on the planet. And I'm going to give you an opportunity to present this award, and we call it the Sit Your Ass Down Award.
My mom used to do this whenever I messed up.
Exactly right. Well, my grandfather used to tell that to me every now and then as well. So, Ruben, who would you present the Sit Your Ass Down Award to?
I mean, the most recent thing that just caught me, and I'm just like, my God, if I had you in front of me, I'd say, sit your ass down and explain to me. That's what my mom would say, right? J.D. Vance, on his comments about how we're going to end the Ukraine war, and saying like it's going to be similar to how we ended the World War II, through negotiations. Like, this man went to Yale Law School, right? And I know you have a very high opinion of Yale, so do I, Jamie. But like, the way we ended the war was Adolf Hitler put a bullet in his head, and we dropped 2 nuclear bombs on Japan, and they surrendered unconditionally, right? And so for him to change history to make it seem that Russia is going to come to the negotiation table when it's more akin to what's probably going to happen if it really is going to end is with Putin just giving up and or his generals overthrowing him, right? That's really what's going to happen. But this idea that you can negotiate with an authoritarian is stupid. And then basing it on false history, right? Either you know better and you're just lying, or you're dumb, which is even scarier.
Okay, very quick question, Ruben. A lot of speculation about 2028. So why the hell were you in Iowa?
Well, Jamie, look, I went to Iowa. I've been going to other states. And look, I won a really hard race, as we talked about. And we need to have friends. We need to have people that know how to fight. And some of those people are going to be in Iowa. We need to pick up some of these congressional seats, some of these Senate seats, other parts of the country, and we're going to keep, talking this message and helping them out. What's going to happen in the future? Look, as I told you, I got 3 kids. That's my focus right now. It's hard to run for anything with 3 kids. So we're going to focus on 2026, getting more Democrats in office and just changing, the direction of this ship.
Okay, we're going to keep watching you. We have an eye out on 2028. We'll see if you come here to South Carolina. But Ruben, thank you so much for being here at our table. We've really enjoyed the conversation today.
All right, brother. See you soon. I guess.
If you enjoyed today's show, please be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Follow us on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, or anywhere that you find your podcasts. To be the first to know who will be at our table next, find us at ourtablepodcast.com. At Our Table with Jamie Harrison is a production of Vision Blue Media. Our founding executive producers are Jason Hayter and Jamie Harrison. Our producers are Kyle Kelly and Emily Harrell. Our content consultants are Ernie Grigg and Clay Middleton. Our digital communications are led by Celie Riccio. Neil Rossini of FWRV LLP provides production legal. Title sequence by Tom Hunt. Our theme song, Blonde Gone, is written by Dewey and published by Alibi Music Library. We recorded this episode at As Told by Studio in Columbia, South Carolina. Very special thanks to Senator Ruben Gallego and his team. I'm Jamie Harrison, and I look forward to another conversation at our table.